Hello, everyone. As we get into programming in Python, I just want to give you a quick overview of what resources we have available within the course. I'll walk you through some of them. Most of them you see here are optional, but this video will help you understand all of the links that we have here in week 4 and get comfortable starting to use Python. So before we jump in, I just want to show you here before week 4, while we're still in week 3, there's this optional tutorial on Python basics. You'll see I use something called the carpentries if you open these links, where they walk you through different scenarios. This one is software carpentries, but there is also data carpentry. Actually, we are in data carpentry for this one, where each of these are self-contained tutorials that will walk you through some more information on how to navigate through Python. These are all focused on Python, not necessarily on where you're running Python. So that's what I'll show you today is where you can run that on your own machine. You can also use any of the DataCamp pages to run your own Python scripts directly in those DataCamp pages. So I do encourage you to play around with this. This will give you the Python code that you can then copy and paste or retype. And you'll see anything with a hashtag is a comment. And so anything with a hashtag doesn't actually run in Python. So all of these things that I'm highlighting right here are just the explanations that are not part of the code itself. The code is right here on the left-hand side, but then this explains what that is. So let me go ahead and close out of this and we'll go through in the week 4 module. So first you have DataCamp. That is your assignment that you are working on over this past week. And now what I'm going to show you is Google Colab. And so this is a tool, if you're familiar with Google Docs, this is just a Google Docs equivalent of an environment where you can run your own Python code. So later on in the course, we'll use something called Anaconda to access Jupyter Notebooks. This is essentially doing the exact same thing, but instead of being on your own machine where you have to download something, this is the Google Docs version. So this document here gives you my tutorial instruction guide on how to activate Google Colab within your own instance of Google Drive. But I'll walk through it and feel free to follow along on here or go to the instructions and follow it with me. So just when you go into your Google Drive account, either from your ASU account or your personal Gmail, all you do is go to new document like you're starting any other document. But instead of opening up a Google Doc or a sheet or slides, under more, eventually you'll have this where it says Google Collaboratory. But if you don't yet see this right here for Google Colab, all you need to do is click on Connect More Apps. So when you click on Connect More Apps, up here under Search Apps, just start typing Colab and you'll see it here. And then you'll click on that link, and then this is the one. So you'll see for me, it's already installed. But if you click on this, then you'll have install if you're not already installed. So that is how to activate Colab on your own Google Drive account. And then you'll see something similar to what I see when you go in to create a new Google Doc. You'll see, or a new Google Drive file, you'll see Colab as an option right here. So let's open it up. I'll show you a little bit in here and then we'll continue on. So one of the things that we can do in Python is we can take a variable and let's just actually say I have just X. So this is a variable that I'm going to want to define, but I haven't yet done anything. So if I try to run this, the way that you run something in Colab is click on this run cell. You'll see there's different shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. So I'm on a Mac, so it's Command or Control. So Command Enter on a Mac, Control Enter on a PC. And when you hover over this triangle, the run button, you'll see that on your own machine. So let's try clicking that. And let's try to see what this error is because I just ran the letter X, which is what I'll call my variable, but I didn't yet tell Python, I didn't yet tell Colab what I want to define as X. So that's what this first error message here means is name X is not defined because this is the very start of my document, my coding document. And if I don't define what it's actually equal to, then it's just going to get confused and say this variable called X does not exist. So what we need to do is we need to define it. And the way that we'll do that in Python is by doing X equals and then type in a number. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. Let's do it this way. So when you go ahead and run this now, you'll see a couple of things. So I clicked run here, and that runs this box. So you see this physical box that's here is a box of code. And what we have here is you'll see that there's a green check mark telling you that you've run this box. This is the amount of time that it takes to run it. And so you'll see, okay, I ran this what's called chunk of code that executed the line x equals 5. And in Python, if you want to see what something is, you want the computer to print it out, you click print x. So if I click that, now in addition to this box that has my code, underneath this line here, I have this output that says the output is equal to 5. So that's kind of the basics of how we define variables, how we print things in Python. One of the nice features of a Colab notebook is that it's not just for running code. So anyone who has a background in software engineering or in programming generally likes to work in files called .py. So if you just see this middle piece here, .py is a Python script. What we are going to be working on for this course is looking at files called IPYNB, which are interactive Python notebooks. So that's what we're going to use. And the reason I like to do that is because in this class, we don't just want to focus on the script. We also want to focus on the output and being able to add in text. So if you click on that plus text, you can add text in right here. You can actually do it in HTML if you'd like. You can format as code. And so if we do this, and DataCamp has a tutorial on Markdown, so that's the type of language similar to HTML, and it actually can use HTML. But if we want to say, this is how we assign a variable. So we can then close that. We can move this around by clicking the move up. So here we have, this is how we assign a variable. You can learn, oh, I clicked italicize by accident, but you can then highlight and make things bold. You can format it however you want to format it. And then close will close that for you. So that is our piece of text. And then we have our code chunk. So you can add as many code chunks as you need. So sometimes I like, if I'm going to run multiple things, I put in a couple and then start working. So again, just like I did x equals 5 and then print x, I can tell it, let's say now I decide to do another cell that says x equals 10. Okay, so I run, let's actually, yeah, I'll run this one. So if you think before I run this, the x equals 5 means that in the storage, in the memory of this notebook, we have a variable called x, and right now that x takes on the value of 5. Once I click this run, it's going to erase the 5 by replacing it with the number 10. So x equals 10. And then now if I do print x right here, it will print out the new number 10. One of the things to be aware of, though, is in a Jupyter notebook or a Colab notebook, when you click on running a cell, what it does is it only runs that specific cell. It does not run your entire set of code. So here I have 3 chunks of code that I've ran sequentially. You can see the order looking over here at the sequential order. This takes on the value 3, 4, and 5, and that just depends on how many things you've run. But so let's say I want to now rerun this x equals 5, and it will print out the new version. Then if I skip this x equals 10 and I just click print x, it still shows 5 because that's the latest cell of code that I ran where I defined x. So just be aware that if you're running things and if you want to change values of things, being sure of the intention of how you do it. Often you would just call it a different number if you want a different variable. But when I do run all, that's where it actually runs all of the cells in the notebook sequentially, one at a time. So it'll run this first cell, print whatever the execution is of both parts of this all together. So it's actually running this line followed by running this line, but it runs these two chunks of code, these two lines of code, because they're in this one big box, are run at once. Then it comes down and it's going to run this next chunk of code. So now we're replacing 5 with 10. And then finally, if we click on the next one, print X, it'll give us our latest X. So that's some of the basics. You can also um, write things out in strings. So let's just say um, we want to put a little message here where we can say the value of X is. So what this statement does is anything that's here in quotation marks is a string of text. So those are just words that are appearing as words. So even this letter X here is the word or the character X. It's not the variable X that we have here. And you'll see a cool thing if you hover over the variable X, it actually tells you, okay, this is an integer. We have different types of values in Python, and the value is 10. So if I run this code, here's what we're going to get. We're going to get a sentence that says the value of X is 10. And you can go ahead and format it in whatever way you want. If you wanted to add other things or add another line, you can go ahead and do that too. So the value of X is 10. And you can customize and you can add in words, you can do other things like that as well. So that is some of the basics just of how to navigate a Google Colab notebook. Some of the nice things about this is you can also then download the files. So we'll be doing that where you're working on your Colab notebooks and being able to navigate around through that as well. Um, you can also print out your notebooks. So you can use that to save as PDF or other things like that. So as we go through, I'll start to show you some of the more advanced features of this. We'll have, again, I mentioned Jupyter notebooks that will run through Anaconda starting in a couple weeks from now. But I wanted to start off where you don't actually have to manage anything in terms of installing on your own machines. I wanted to give it to you where you can kind of just go through and we'll get the basics. If you do see this AI builder, this AI pop up, you can just click on close, or you can try using it. You can have conversations with that. So with that, let's close this document and let's go back to our Canvas page here. So again, the instructions, those are the basics of what I just did of how to activate Colab on your account. Now let's open up this in-class Python tutorial. So I'm going to open it in a new window. There's a lot of messy text right here, but the place where you need to then click is click right here in the top right corner where it says Open with Google Colab. So we click on that and then watch what happens. It will now take my document that I've worked on, that I've created, and you now have access, view-only access to my Colab document right here. So this is my document here. If you do want to edit anything in here, you actually can do it locally, but it will not save. So if you want to make a copy so that way you can save and come back to this, what I recommend you do is click on File, Save a Copy in Drive. That just lets you open up a copy of my original notebook, but you're making it as a copy, and then you own that file and you can modify the file however you want. So if you go in here, what you can do, I'm actually going to do that too. Let's just make a copy of it so I don't mess up the original. So this is my copy. I encourage you to read through this file. We'll walk through a little bit right now so you can start to see what it's doing. But this is some of the things that I want to show you to make sure that you know how to do certain things in Colab. So feel free to take a look. I've added comments in here. You can also feed this in by copying and pasting into ChatGPT or your other AI of choice to ask it what's going on in each of these cells. So I wanted to show you in these print statements a little bit about how we can do some calculations. So again, like I mentioned before, anything that's in these quotation marks is a string. So that's a text variable versus if we just put numbers here, we can use it like a calculator. So this first line, print, adding two numbers, and then that actually just calculates the sum. I'll run this. It already has the output there, but if I wanted to edit any of these numbers, I could do that too. So if I add these two numbers right here, 15 and 37, I could change this. I'll change this 12 to a 10. 10 times 8 is 80, and so on. So we have some basic arithmetic that we can do. As we looked at before, we can assign variables. So feel free to play around with these variables. You can change these numbers to whatever you want. We'll do -15 and 0. So you can see addition, subtraction, multiplication. I made a little game here that you can do to do those same things of the variables. This is relying on something called input that you see right here, which when that runs, you see it's still running because it's in the midst of running this code, of executing this code. So here's the little game. If you look down at the output, now it's your turn. If you tell me two numbers, I'll calculate these basic calculations. So first, share your first number, X. I'll just say 1 and hit enter. Okay, thanks for sharing your first number. I've assigned the value of X as 1, and I'm ready to continue. Now please share your second number, Y. Let's do -100 for fun. Okay, now it's done that, and it made these same calculations that we did up above, but I just turned it into a game so you can see what the input text looks like. So if you want to keep going, you can just type in another number. Let's do 11 and 32, and it gives me that. And then once I tell it the letter Q, just type in the letter Q, that knows that it quits the game. We still have the transcript of all the things that we did here, but I quit the game and am able to move on. Let's run this little script. Hello, Python. I'm Jason. What's your name? So you can say whatever your name is. Let's just say Jason B. Hi, Jason B. It's nice to meet you. I'm learning Python. So again, another way to just see how we look at this basic input function, this script in Python. There's a lot of fancier things that we can do. And if you're taking a class on Python for problem solving or Python in computer science, you'll look at verification, kind of validation. How do we validate that the user types in a name versus numbers? Or up above, how do we validate that they only type in numbers and not letters? And so there's different things that we can do, safeguards that we can put in place to prevent them from breaking the script. But again, if you mess it up, just click on rerun again and you can go from there. So I encourage you to take a look at this and continue on. In the instructions for activating Google Colab, I give you a little example from Hello World, which is commonly the first thing that you'll do when you're programming, that I believe you saw on DataCamp. And so this is just a way of printing out that text. There's different things here. So like being able to turn your text into lowercase, being able to select out and strip out certain parts of it as well. So feel free to look through this and use this as you're going through DataCamp to get a little bit more practice and reach out if you have any questions on that. So that is the Python practice. I'll show you some of these other things that we have here. We have a code along, which again comes from Software Carpentry. This one is getting a little bit more advanced than what was in last week's, but it's building on what is in DataCamp and what we just did. So it first talks about assigning variables. It'll give you an overview of different types of data, what are integers versus floating point numbers, and then strings, which are text. So it'll share that, and you'll see the quotation marks are able to distinguish a string variable. And often, and like this is a good case where a single quotation mark or double are equivalent here in Python. So you'll sometimes see either one, and they both work, and you can always test it out. So it starts out pretty simple. It tells you how to get help on any of the built-in functions. Like here we have the function print. We also saw the built-in function just a minute ago called input, where you're asking the user to generate text as an input to store your own variable with that. So if you put help then into the parentheses, put the name of the function, that will then give you some documentation about that function of what does it do, what are some of the things that we need to think about when we are doing it. So these are the arguments that can go into the text. You'll see when I ran print, you can just keep it simple and keep just the first value of what you need. But if you did want to put in separator values, you can do that. The default is a space, but you can tell it what to do as the separator, including no space. So here there's one space, but you can make it two spaces, you can make it zero spaces between these quotation marks. And then what to do to end a line. So the default is it'll go to a new line, but you can change how it appends it to the next piece that comes after it. As you go on here, there's more examples. There's some challenges if you want to check your own understanding. So I do encourage you, this part is not required for the course, but I encourage you to run through this entire tutorial that you just saw right here. But actually do run your own code in Colab or on DataCamp so that you can see the output of all of this code. So by the end of going through Python for developers, by the end of playing around with the Python tutorial, you'll be able to follow along and do the code along for that. I have two optional activities here. There's a quick video on pandas in 10 minutes. Pandas is a package that you'll use, a library for data science. And then we also have this optional Colab tutorial, very similar to the other Google Colab notebook that I gave you, but this goes a lot more in depth. So if you do want a deeper understanding into some of the packages that we'll be using in the class, this gives you a preview of what is to come. And there's explanations here, and then you can run your own code. But I do encourage you to utilize the AI tools. You'll see here on Gemini, you can toggle Gemini on and off directly within your Colab notebook. And you can also just copy and paste the code and ask your favorite AI tool to help you understand it. So those are the week 4 resources. And again, I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions, go through the DataCamp tutorials for this week and for next week. And I'm glad to help as we get started. I will see you all in next week's modules.